Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's morning briefing. Israel today is reopening the Gaza crossing checkpoints thanks to what the Defense Ministry has called a relative calm. This, however, despite a weekend still practically full of terrorist activity. IDF forces first ramped up their activity along the Gaza border in a show of force Thursday afternoon, just a day after a rocket from Gaza landed on a Beersheba home. Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror organization still deny any involvement in the attack, though, and blame outside forces for attempting to sabotage Egyptian and UN-led negotiations with Israel via the attack. The weekly Hamas-organized riots along the Gaza-Israel border on Friday were also relatively small, with protesters numbering just around 10,000, a third of several previous weekends. Still, those who did arrive set fire to tires and threw them over the fence. They also again threw grenades and explosives at the Israeli forces across the border and at the security barrier itself. 130 Palestinians were reportedly shot and wounded by IDF forces in efforts to push them back. Saturday morning, fires sparked by incendiary balloons broke out along the Israel-Gaza border region near Kisufim, Be'eri, and Shekoda forests. No injuries were reported, and IAF jets later attacked a terror cell in the southern Gaza Strip that was launching the incendiary balloons. But a few Palestinians Saturday morning managed to break into Israel and film their seemingly easy trip. They even hung a photo of a supposed Palestinian martyr on an abandoned sniper post. Later, Israeli police arrested a 20-year-old Palestinian man in the settlement of Har Adar outside Jerusalem. He was armed with a knife, and investigations established that the suspect first breached the separation barrier and then walked through a forest to get to the settlement, intent on carrying out a terror attack. Thankfully, the suspect only walked about 30 meters into the settlement before being noticed by a security guard who alerted authorities. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Authority is now again denouncing the United States after Secretary of State Pompeo's announcement last week. Pompeo reported Washington's intent to merge its main diplomatic mission in East Jerusalem for the Palestinians with its new embassy in Jerusalem. Pompeo reiterated that the United States continues to take no position on final status issues, though, including boundaries or borders, leaving such decisions up to the result of direct negotiations. That, and that the move is meant to, quote, achieve significant efficiencies and increase our effectiveness, end quote. But the Palestinian Authority sees this as yet another downgrading in relations and a major blow to the United States' position as a partner and intermediary in peace.
The American State Department's decision to merge the consulate with the so-called embassy is a further step in trying to dictate the results of negotiations and to move from negotiations to dictations. It's part of the so-called deal of the century, meaning they want to take off Jerusalem off the table, refugees and settlements off the table. And it's being dictated by a group of extremist ideologues in the US administration.
In addition to this move, Trump's administration has also recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, moved the United States Embassy to Jerusalem shortly thereafter, cut funding to Palestinian aid organizations, and closed the PLO offices in Washington. All moves that the Palestinians have publicly stated they feel were hostile. Pompeo insists, however, that the United States will, quote, continue to conduct a full range of reporting, outreach, and programming in the West Bank and Gaza, as well as with Palestinians in Jerusalem through a new Palestinian Affairs unit inside the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, end quote. Israel's Channel 2 News also even reported that President Trump sent World Jewish Congress President Ron Lauder as a personal envoy to President Abbas last week. Time will tell how the Palestinians will respond if and when the move comes to fruition. Lara Al-Qasim, the alleged BDS activist from Florida, is now allowed to enter Israel to enroll in her master's program at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, following the Israeli High Court's ruling on Thursday. This after the initial ban against her was upheld by two previous courts over the past 2 weeks. Al-Qasim's case is just the latest in a string that have sparked much debate in Israel over whether democratic values were compromised by a 2017 law that bars the entry of foreigners who publicly support Israel boycotts. Al-Qasim therefore was denied entry because she was previously the head of her university's chapter of the pro-BDS anti-Israel group, Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP. It was initially reported, though, that Al-Qasim stopped her activities in SJP months before Israel passed its law to prevent BDS activists from entering. And although it was later found that Al-Qasim appeared in an SJP photo posted months after she allegedly left the group, the ruling still went in Al-Qasim's favor. Part of the judge's reasoning is reportedly because the Israel consulate in Miami granted her a student visa, and she had already been accepted into the Hebrew University for her program. Judges said the standards for revoking a visa should be higher. Alan Dershowitz, a constitutional law scholar and professor of law at Harvard University, said simply, quote, "I strongly support the court's decision. Israel never should have detained her," end quote. According to Lara Al-Qasim's defense attorney, the court also said there was insufficient evidence to suggest Al-Qasim was a threat to the country as an agent of BDS.
The Supreme Court found that Lara Al-Qasim does not meet the test of a BDS activist. What is more, the court found that the evidence is so weak and so transparent that there is an impression that she was not targeted for alleged activities, but rather for her political opinions. The court held that if that is in fact the case, if she was in fact targeted for her opinions and not for her actions, then that is a very dangerous step to the uncrumbling of the pillars upon which Israeli democracy stands. The court decision ruled that thought policing has zero place in an Israeli democracy.
Security Minister Gilad Erdan, who also denied Al-Qasim's entry at first, suggested, however, that Al-Qasim's studies wouldn't preclude her from BDS activities in the future. He also tweeted, though, that the government will examine the ruling and legal criteria in order to ensure, quote, that the original intent of the law is maintained, end quote.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.